In November 2022, a record-breaking snowstorm blanketed the region near Colorado Springs. 28-year-old Mason Cole was driving an overnight route for a private delivery service, transporting emergency medical packages between remote towns. Around 1:42 a.m., surrounded by heavy snow and thick pine forests, his navigation system froze. The screen flickered, and a completely new road appeared on the digital map. It offered a shortcut that would supposedly shave 40 minutes off his freezing drive. He took the turn. His cell phone dropped all signal. The radio dissolved into unbroken static. The road ahead was entirely untouched, cutting through trees so dense his headlights could barely penetrate the dark. 20 minutes later, the trees abruptly ended. In the middle of nowhere sat a quiet, glowing neighborhood. 20 identical houses lined neat sidewalks under old street lamps. Christmas decorations hung from the porches, despite it being weeks early. A wooden sign near the entrance read, "Welcome to Ashen Hollow." Mason checked his GPS again. It showed blank terrain. He had driven dozens of times through this specific stretch of Colorado highway, but according to the map, the town he was idling in did not exist. Sitting in his truck, Mason noticed a detail about the quiet streets. Every mailbox displayed only a first name: James, Olivia, Bennett, Claire. There were no surnames, no house numbers, and no standard postal markings anywhere. Hoping for directions back to the highway, he knocked on the nearest door. An elderly woman opened it, smiling politely. "You're late," she told him. When Mason explained his GPS had led him astray, her smile dropped. She stepped aside, telling him the storm was too bad and he should stay until morning. When he declined, the neighborhood lights flickered. A loudspeaker crackled to life overhead. A calm, soft male voice echoed through the entire subdivision. Residents are advised to remain indoors after 3:33 a.m. Inspection night has been moved forward. The woman closed her door without another word. Mason returned to his truck and turned around to leave. But the road he had just driven down was gone. Where the entrance to the neighborhood should have been, there was only an endless wall of dense, snow-covered trees. He drove street after street, searching for an exit. Every route impossibly curved back toward the center of the neighborhood. The geography had sealed itself behind him. At 2:18 a.m., Mason parked near a small diner in the neighborhood center. Inside, 6 people ate in complete silence under dim lights. A resident named Eric pulled Mason aside, whispering that nobody in Ashen Hollow arrived intentionally. They all came through wrong turns and broken roads. Eric showed him a collection of newspaper clippings hidden inside his jacket. They were missing persons reports. The faces on the faded paper matched several people sitting nearby. One woman, officially missing since 1998, lived just 3 houses away, having barely aged a day. Eric explained the town's strict cycle. Every few nights, an inspection occurs, and after every inspection, a house empties. No furniture left behind, not a single belonging, gone by sunrise. It is as if the family had never existed. At exactly 3:21 a.m., the loudspeakers crackled again. Every light inside the surrounding houses switched off simultaneously. Doors locked automatically. Eric dragged Mason inside his small house, and the curtains were violently slammed shut against the dark. Inside, Eric's family huddled in complete darkness, whispering prayers. Survival in this town required absolute blind obedience to the rules of the inspection. At 3:33 a.m., the temperature inside the house plummeted. The windows frosted over instantly. Then came the sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps, crunching slowly through the snow outside. Peering through a tiny gap in the curtains, Mason watched the street. 3 figures walked between the houses. They were impossibly tall and thin, wearing dark coats that dragged near the snow, their faces hidden entirely in shadow. One of the figures stopped outside a neighbor's house and tilted its head toward a window. Without anyone touching it, the front door slowly opened. Minutes later, the figure stepped back outside alone. There was no struggle and not a single scream of resistance. The lights in the targeted house switched off permanently. Around 4:12 a.m., the silence returned, and the loudspeaker softly announced that the inspection was complete. Across the street, the remaining residents sat awake in the dark. They had listened to a neighbor disappear, and they offered only silent compliance in return. Morning arrived with a forced normalcy. Birds chirped and residents walked casually outside, looking past the house that now sat empty, its windows dark and all traces of its occupants gone. Mason searched the neighborhood office building near the Center Park. Inside, he found walls covered in hundreds of arrival photographs, with handwritten dates stretching back to 1974. Then, pinned near the newest arrival section, he saw his own face. It was a Polaroid taken the night before, standing beside his truck. Beneath it, a neatly written label read, "Reserved Property, House 14." Desperate, he pushed through the dense tree line at the edge of town. Hidden in the snow stood a set of massive, rusted iron gates. Covered in grime were heavy signs dated 1977 that read, "Experimental Community Closed, Federal Access Forbidden." The records and the rusted signs pointed to a classified program that never truly ended. It persisted in the woods, drawing in a new traveler every time a house became vacant. Mason was not going to wait for his turn. Around midnight, he stole Eric's tapis and broke curfew. Instantly, the streetlights flared on. The houses opened, and residents stepped outside, watching silently. He ran for the town square, but the tall figures were already there. One stepped out from the trees and lifted its head. Beneath the shadow of its coat, there was no face, just a mass of unnatural darkness. Mason turned and broke into a blind sprint through the twisting, shifting woods, running desperately toward his truck. He slammed the door, started the engine, and drove. Suddenly, the GPS flashed to life. A single route appeared, labeled Exit. He hit the gas. The snow vanished, and just like that, Mason emerged onto a normal, sunlit highway. He reported everything to the police. They scoured the area, but there was no neighborhood, and no rusted gates. Satellite maps revealed only miles of dense, unbroken evergreen forest. Mason tried to move on, until a package without a return address arrived 3 weeks later. Inside sat a single brass house key. Beneath the key was a small welcome card, written in black ink. It read, "A vacancy has opened. Ashen Hollow looks forward to your return."